Today we get to discuss mania, which is a little bit of an unfair advantage to me because I've spent the past 3 or 4 years researching this topic and writing a lot about it. I've written two of my past books on mania. And what struck me originally, it wasn't the importance of the idea, it was actually the insignificance with which it's treated in the history of psychoanalysis. Mania is the most overlooked and neglected psychological syndrome by psychoanalysis, which tells me there's something there. And here's another strange coincidence to that, which is that it is the most ancient term for madness. It's the first Greek, sort of etymologically, it's the first Greek expression to constitute a definition of madness. So you would think that something which has been used by the ancients, by the medievals as well, you see the term mania all over the medieval era in different places. But here's the problem with it, is that it's used almost always as a catch-all term to just describe generalized abnormality, right? So it's an all-enveloping, again, catch-all umbrella vocabulary that basically describes anything that goes outside the boundaries of sanity. So it doesn't have much specificity or kind of acute definition. By the way, Foucault does talk about it in Madness and Civilization, probably his most beautifully written book, stylistically, and also The Birth of the Clinic. But he can't make heads or tails of what the hell people mean for centuries by mania either, except that it's riddled like bullet holes across pages of physicians in the ancient world, the medieval era, all up until the modern. Interestingly, this tendency to use a term like mania to describe anything that exceeds some type of excess of behavior later gets translated by psychoanalysis into what they call psychosis or pathology. This is an interesting thing because if mania fastens itself to outside objects, so you think the pyromaniac lives and dies by fire, right? To the point that there's this volatile obsession with the foreign, with what is not me. Does that make sense? That's the manic enterprise, right? A kind of vital fascination with what is not me. A bibliomaniac is obsessed with books. They love books more than themselves, to the point of sacrificial devotion. Again, they will die for it. They will perish for it. Now, why is that so threatening to psychoanalysis? Because law number one of Freudian psychoanalysis is that the ego is predicated upon preservation instinct. Saves itself. It wants to survive above all else. The manic figure can dream of no greater pleasure principle or wish than to die for its object of desire. You see how that uproots the psychoanalytic preservation instinct, right? Then to die for, now you could turn around and say, yeah, professor, but people die all the time for stupid ideas, or they martyr themselves for ideological causes, religions, nations, ethnos, family. Yes, but that's different. Almost all of those are based in patterns of narcissistic resemblance that reinforce identity, reinforce subjectivity and self. There is, hear me on this, there is zero ontological value in developing a fascination with stones. There's no better description of that in the ancient world than the manic figure. Mania is precisely the one who vanishes from the world, goes missing because they're off looking for butterflies in the hills or whatever thereafter at that moment. Or if you want to really magnify it, you can go for prophets who chase voices into the mountains, betraying family, betraying tribes, betraying cattle, which is to say economy, society, filial loyalty, all to chase a voice, an intimation, right? Interesting thing. How does a mania originate? How does it develop? Here's something cool. This is another reason why psychoanalysis hates it. Most psychoses and pathologies, according to psychoanalysis, emanate from trauma, right? That's the buzzword. That's the key buzzword. Whether we're talking about a singular individual trauma, someone violated you at a certain point, or we're talking about universal traumas, like the trauma of birth, as Otto Rank said, or like the trauma of the mirror stage, according to Lacan, or the Oedipal complex as a trauma, right? So there are universal traumas and then there are individual traumas. Well, mania doesn't emanate from trauma. It emanates from curiosities. Amazing. For those of you who don't know, the entire Islamic tradition is predicated upon a moment in a cave when the angel Gabriel appears before the Prophet Muhammad, who has been sleeping, and commands him to recite, Iqra, to which he responds, I can't, because he's illiterate.